Hey, hi everyone. Thank you for coming for the new video of data engineering mock interview. This is the data engineering round one, and today we have people whom we will be interviewing, and we also have Sai. Sai is senior to me, and he works with me at the same company, and we will be taking interview of people. I hope you both are ready. Please say hi, Sai.
Hi.
Hey, hi,
Hi.
people. So let's start the interview. So, people, will you please let us know about yourself and where you have worked, your area of expertise, and your journey till now, and your education's qualifications?
Yeah, sure. So I have worked around 6 years in the industry. I have around 5.5 to 6 years of industry experience as of now. And I have done my graduation from IET Lucknow. It's a state affiliated college. I did my in 2017, and post that I have been working. So I'll go from my most recent to the latest to the last one. So currently I am working at Myntra as a senior software engineer in the data platforms team,
Mhm.
and I'm working here in the data ingestion project. And previously, I worked with a US based company that was a growing stage startup, and that was by the name of Tika Metrics. And again, I worked there as a data engineer, advanced data engineer. Yeah. And prior to that, I worked as a Indian healthcare startup by the name of Haplo Health, and I worked there as an application developer.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is my experience in a very nutshell.
Vipul, can you explain about the projects and technical details and your roles and responsibilities in those projects?
Yeah, so currently I'm working in the data ingestion part of the project, which basically what it does, it gets the data from various sources that it generates at Myntra, and various sources here are MySQL sources, NoSQL sources, SQL and NoSQL sources. Kafka is one of the basically the ingestion team, API based ingestion and all those. So there are multiple sources we get the data from. Then there is a pipeline built over that, and the final destination is the data warehouse. And just to speak of the different components, so we get the data from these all different components like MySQL, NoSQL, as told. And when we have different connectors, and from these connectors we get the data, we read the CDC events and get the data into Kafka topics. And once the data is produced in these Kafka topics, we use the Kafka Connect framework to consume these data and write it into a data lake, which is we are using as of now the Azure Blob.
Mhm.
So we write that data over there, and from that we use Spark as a processing engine to process the data and dump it in data warehouse.
Okay,
Okay.
you load.
Yeah, sorry, Sai. Yeah, with this we are taking this interview for the first time together, so this might be getting some bit. Okay. So people help me to understand. You talked about your project. So you talked about there are multiple sources like NoSQL, DBMS systems, and then you have also Kafka. So when you are reading the data and you talked about multiple connectors, help me to understand, is it a single product or you write multiple pipelines and multiple connectors individually?
Okay, so we take this as a different sub project. Let's say for all the DBMS transactional systems, that is a
Mhm.
different pipeline, and that is we have mainly MySQL as of now, because Postgres we are not using in our company. So for all
Mhm.
the MySQL databases or tables that we are ingesting, we use it by the Debezium connector. So that is
Okay.
one portion of it. And let's say we the next thing is NoSQL. For NoSQL, we are doing it via Cassandra and MongoDB mainly. So
Okay.
for that, we are reading the CDC events via the Mongo source connector.
Okay.
Yeah. And for Kafka based ingestions, let's say that's a third part, Kafka based ingestion, we are directly, the team that is producing the record, they are directly producing the events to Kafka.
Okay, I got
And
it. So most of your systems is actually utilizing CDC to
yeah.
extract the data and put it into your systems, so you can utilize it. Help me to understand. Is it why CDC is in place, right? What is the use of CDC, and why you have actually choose the CDC instead of using ETL, writing ETL process to take data from that particular source, like from let's suppose from MySQL to your data lake. Why you have gone for CDC? I hope CDC also comes with a lot of cost. right? So why not to develop the ETL, one ETL pipeline and take the data from MySQL or from MongoDB and put it into your data lake? And why the CDC was implemented? Will you please help me to make it clear?
Yes, sir. Just to have a clarifying question, so are you mentioning for your question, is it like a one-time dump? So we take all the data from these particular sources and get it all at once and transformation on the go, whatever we do, and then dump it into warehouse. Is that what you're pointing at?
No, no. I think let me clarify the questions. You said that you are having CDC tools in place, which is
Hmm.
taking data from, which is actually capturing your data, like change data from your MySQL, from your MongoDB, from your Cassandra, and then it is loading data to your systems, right? So you can
Yes.
actually consume it and you can apply your transformation. I want, as you mentioned that you are part of data ingestion teams, so there are two ways of taking data from the transactional systems. Even it can be SQL or it can be NoSQL. One can write one ETL process like extract, transform, and load after certain, after 4 hours or after 12 hours or after any hour of times. One can write this ETL process, take the data and put it into their raw layer, and then they can start different data pipelines and other things. That's the one way of designing system. Other way of designing is system is to just have CDC in place in the database itself, which will help you to extract data whenever they change, right? So my question is, was there any need of getting all the latest data in a real time fashion? Because of that the CDC was implemented, or the region, there might be other regions. And so I hope the now question is clear to you. I wanted to understand your understanding between difference between the CDC and the ETL processes. Are you clear on that?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just explain the process. So basically, what our process is, it's a mix of real time and a batch pipeline. So
Okay.
we read the CDC events from Debezium connector on a real time basis, get the
Mm-hmm.
data to Kafka, produce it and consume it from Kafka only, Kafka Connect, and
Mm-hmm.
put it into blob. So this part is real time, you can say. And
Okay.
once the data is there, we use Airflow to run the jobs at a there are three types of jobs: daily job, 4 hour jobs, and 30-minute jobs.
Mm-hmm.
The different frequency, and those are batch processes basically. So half
Okay.
part of it is getting the data in real time till data lake, and from
Mm-hmm.
data lake to warehouse, the transformation side, that is a batch process. That is not real
Okay,
time.
so as far as I can understood, so you are saying that from your transactional systems, you have real time capturing in place, like Debezium is helping you to put it into Kafka
Yes,
topic, and after that you are using Kafka Connect to load data into your data lake, and from that becomes your raw layer, and from
yeah,
there you have written the batch pipeline. Got it.
yes.
Help me to understand. So you might have used Debezium, like you mentioned Debezium and Kafka Connect. So how both are different, right? We can use even Kafka Connect at one level, at one place, Debezium at another level. How does company decide that I should use Kafka Connect and either I should use Debezium? There is no much difference when the theoretical things are in place. But as a developer, how do you decide that I should go for Kafka Connect or I should go for Debezium?
Okay, so for Debezium, this is like there are two sides of one is the producer side and another is the consumer side, I would say, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, for let's say for the producer side, so Debezium is made such that there can be multiple sources which we can extract the data. And Kafka Connect, and let's say for MySQL, it reads the bill log. It reads
Mm-hmm.
the bill log and it reads whatever changes are there, whatever changes are made, it reads the bill log and then read those changes, even change events basically, and then produce the events. And Kafka Connect, on the other hand, is a very Kafka centric framework for
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for on one side we have Kafka, so we have different things written to Kafka, and we have also mold our consumer in such a way that it will consume from Kafka and what end, and will dump the data and do some sort of transformation also to dump it into the data lake Azure blob. Yeah, and coming to your question, yeah, so Debezium, I don't think so. Debezium would be, they are meant for their purposes only. Debezium can't be kept on the other side, that it can read from Kafka and put it into the data blob, and Kafka Connect also, it cannot be done from Kafka connect can be done from this side. Yeah, it can read from Debezium and it can put to Kafka. But yeah, that was a design choice that was made.
Okay, I got it. That might be the organization level decision.
Yeah.
Okay, so have you gone deeper into how does Debezium understand that there is change in the MySQL systems? How does Debezium actually understand? Does it read from what is the source from where it actually understands there is change in the MySQL?
Yes. Yeah. So Debezium is a product which takes in data from multiple sources and gets into the Kafka. Let's
Mm-hmm,
this is very base, and
mm-hmm,
MySQL maintains a bin log, that is the binary log that it maintains, and what it
mm-hmm,
does. So basically, it maintains the history of whatever operations have been performed in that particular MySQL database. It is kept at a
mm-hmm,
database level. So let's say there is an insert in that database table, in a particular database table. So an insert will happen in the main table, and correspondingly an entry will also add up into the bin log system, bin log table. Okay, so this
mm-hmm.
particular table, but this particular data has been added. Yeah. So
So,
uh,
mm-hmm,
Debezium maintains two Kafka topics of its internal. One is the
mm-hmm,
history topic, and one is the schema history topic.
mm-hmm,
Yeah. So what it does, and it also maintains the offset. Offset is the last point which it has read the bin log.
mm-hmm,
So at I think 5 seconds or 10 seconds, I'm not very sure of the exact time frame which the Debezium queries the bin log. So it queries the bin log and it gets for all the event. It reads from the last offset till when it is done, and for all the event that has come after that particular offset, it reads those changes, read those events, and make those into and produce those particular event into Kafka.
cool. Got it. So you have told about log-based systems and using the changes there, and with the help of offset, any CDC-based tools like Debezium actually understand that there is change in the source system. Okay, help me to understand. You mentioned about Kafka. Have you used any messaging queue other than Kafka?
I did use RabbitMQ also, but that was long back.
So, do you understand the difference between the traditional messaging queue like RabbitMQ and the Kafka? What is the difference?
Yeah, so Kafka is a PubSub model, which is a publish and subscribe model, and
Mm-hmm.
RabbitMQ is a messaging queue level. Is a
Mm-hmm.
messaging queue. There's a very basic difference in that. So for
Mm-hmm.
Kafka, let's say it is very asynchronous. So we can publish it, and there can be multiple consumers to it consuming it at a very different level. And RabbitMQ is one, there can be only one consumer to it, and if a
Mm-hmm.
message is consumed, it is then erased basically. And for Kafka, it is kept at a certain retention period. Retention time is there, which is specified, and another consumer group can come in and consume those particular event till that particular time. So
Correct.
they are in ideologically they are very different systems, and it depends
Mm-hmm.
on the what in what part of your system you need to imply what basically. Yes.
Correct. Okay, help me to understand that have you gone through the reason why Kafka is actually fast? Do
Okay.
you understand I got the reason like there were traditional systems which was mostly focused on producer and consumer. Now the Kafka comes which talks about publisher and subscriber. uh, one can produce the data, it will be written to the Kafka topic, and any other consumer can come and read at any point of times. That is like decoupling of producer and consumers. But help me to understand why Kafka is actually fast.
Okay. So, Kafka, there are two types of basically Kafka is just you can think of it as a database only. It is a
Okay.
database, it's a distributed database, and there are two types of databases. Databases are built on two different type of ideologies basically. One can be the B trees,
Mm-hmm.
one can be the B trees, and one can be the SSTs, the sorted search tables
Okay.
basically. And the Kafka is is a write heavy system basically. So it
Okay.
works on the ideology of sorted search tables. So
Mm-hmm.
what it does, I am not very sure of the how why it is fast, but I can just help you understand what is the methodology, what is the architecture of Kafka, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So it read the event in a distributed fashion, and it writes into the log files.
Mm-hmm.
And for every log file that it writes, it's a simple append only for whatever statement that is there. It's an append only, and
Mm-hmm.
there is a compaction that happens after every whatever the compaction time is being referred into the Kafka properties.
Mm-hmm.
So compaction process happens after every hour. So there is so less amount of data is also basically queued up for every year.
Yeah, not exactly correct, but you are able to visualize. I've less seen very less people who actually visualize Kafka as a database. Like not many people understand. So that it is actually trying to be a database, but it's a transient database where the data can be lost after the retention time.
Yes, we
But
have.
the fast why Kafka is fast because of the synchronous IO and the zero copy principle. We can talk about it in some other point of time, but yeah, you were trying to approach it. I do like it. So yeah, help me to understand in your Kafka topics. You might have created multiple Kafka topics. How do you decide about retention period and retention size, and even the number of partitions?
Okay, okay. So first was retention speed, retention time.
Retention period, like uh,
Okay,
for us,
retention
the
period.
retention period can be 7 days, 3 days. How do you come up with that number, and even the retention size, that 1 GB, 10 GB, or something like that, and the number of partitions in the Kafka topics? How do you decide these three things? Are these
Okay,
things as the design time decisions, like when you are creating topics, or you are very much flexible in reducing, increasing and decreasing it? And the next question is it actually possible to increase or decrease these things?
okay, sure, sure. So first of all, for any of these questions to be answered, the first of all things we need to consider is what are the business requirements. So
Mm-hmm.
we first of all need to understand the business requirement at the very core of it, what the business is trying to ask and how fast the business actually want, and for what can be the retention time, or retention time in terms of the data replicability. So when they will come back, because there always will happen a chance that data is missed or somewhere it is, and we will have to replay the data.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to give it that buffer time to the business teams also for them to come back and get the data. So that is
Okay.
one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And retention time is that depends on the cluster size. Basically, that is dependent on the cluster size. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, first of all the number of incoming messages per RPM. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
RPM into message size,
Mm-hmm.
into per message size. That is it. And for whatever the time we need to hold, that will define the number of the cluster size. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
what cluster size that we want to have. And
Mm-hmm.
also it is in conjunction to the other thing also, what is our cluster size, and what number of events are we getting into the number of into event size, that we presume will decide on the retention period.
Cool.
So
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that is mostly like your design time decisions, right? Like any number of consumer can come, so you cannot be actually be sure that what should be the number of partitions. It will depend upon your business use case and other things. Cool. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
for number
Please.
of partition I would say it can be increased or decreased, and as but mainly for the number of retention period and the cluster size. So that is the design time decision that is to be taken at the starting only. But yeah, we can change also on the go, and we have done that.
Okay. So let's move to the next part. Have you experienced consumer lag in your Kafka topics? Like there might be some consumer, right, who's consuming data from your Kafka topics and they are unable to do that. You might have also written some code for the which might be treated as consumer, like a Spark streaming or a structure streaming or Flink. Have you written any, or even the Kafka Connect applications? When some anything can read from the Kafka topics, when you realize that there is too much of consumer lag, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that situations, right? Because you want your data to be reflected to the target system in a very much real time way. So if the consumer lags are actually increasing, what is your approach to decrease that consumer lag?
Okay, I want to ask a question. So, consumer lag by you mean from the source system to the end system, or once the data has been produced to Kafka and the
When the
consumer
data
is
has been
not?
processed in Kafka and there is some consumer application, it can be Spring Boot, it can be
Yeah.
structured element, it can be Flink, it can be Kafka Connect, and there are ways to, like, people do keep track of lags being built up in the Kafka topics, right? So let's suppose C1 is consumer is trying to read from that Kafka topics, and in Kafka, yes, that C1 has read 10,000 messages, but it's still in Kafka we have 1 lakh of messages, right? So it's like in Kafka the buildup is being that then too much of messages, and our consumer is actually slow, right? It might happen, right? So how do you deal with this type of situations? How will you approach your solutions to deal with this type of consumer lag? I hope questions is making sense, or
Yeah, yeah.
otherwise explain again.
No, no. So one last thing I had. So is it ongoing process? This consumer lag is happening again and again, or this is a one time this thing happened because there was too much load that suddenly came up, and we
Yeah,
have to solve.
let's give one very real-time example. Okay, so let's suppose you created one application which is gone into production. It's running very fine. Like you have defined max offset per trigger. Like you are in 30 seconds. Your system is expected to read 75,000 of events. Right? Let's suppose your that was your calculations, but holiday periods comes like Christmas, Diwali, and this type of things, and suddenly your data increase in the Myntra, Kafka topics, right? Whatever topics you have answered, then you are, let's suppose your applications, whatever application that you have written, is not able to consume data that fast. So, what will be your approach to improve the consumer code base, or how will you will go? How will you? What will your approach of dealing this type of problems, right? This can happen anytime because your applications might be designed to read data, this much of data, this much of times, and suddenly the data might have pumped up in the topic, right? The consumer lag will increase. So how do you deal with this type of systems?
Okay, okay. So first of all, the first thing we faced a situation in our company also. The first thing that we did was to increase the retention period so
Okay.
that the consumer is able to consume that particular data within that time frame and we'll not be able to we did not lose any data.
Okay,
So
good.
first thing we employ is to increase the retention time to secure
Mm-hmm.
the data. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
first is that thing. Second thing is if in a particular consumer group there is a consumer lag very much that is happening, we may increase the number of consumers also.
Okay.
Yeah, we may increase the number of consumers also, but that will again lead to a rebalancing that might happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that
So
can also create problem of, let's suppose I'm having one consumer reading the data in a sequential way. So if I have multiple consumers, so let's suppose you have created load balancers where you are reading the what you call event offset in by one consumer and odd offset by another consumer, but that will lead to the in order message, right? So how
yeah,
then that can also create one problem, right?
yeah, that will definitely create a problem if ordering of
Order
messages
is
is an
important.
issue.
Order is not important. Yeah, we can always add more consumer. Yeah, please
Yeah,
go
if
ahead.
ordering
Yes.
Yeah, that is a good point. But if ordering is an issue, then we definitely cannot increase the number of consumer at this because our system will fail. The
Yes,
ordering will fail.
that ordering is not important. Two things I got that first thing, we increase the size in the Kafka. Another is add more consumer. What more?
Yeah. So apart from this, what we can try is mm,
Let me help you.
yeah,
So before adding more consumer, shall we not go and check the consumer code base itself? There might be some problem in the consumer code itself, right? So a consumer code, like let's suppose take the example of the Spark structure streaming where you are taking data from Kafka, applying some transformations and loading into some target systems like Azure Blobs or S3 or any other things. We can go and to multiple other transforms, whatever transformations we are doing, that there might be some problem which we can optimize, right? Before adding more consumer we can optimize our code. That can be another solutions, right?
yeah, that can also definitely be a solution if there is a problem at all in the consumer code base. the way that
Hmm.
it is consuming, the number of thread it is being deploying to consume the data, and multi-threading, multi-processing, whatever.
Okay, great. Great, people. Till now, we have discussed from your traditional systems to your Kafka and then to Blob. Let's discuss what you do after once your data is in your raw layer. I assume you call that as a raw layer or what in the Azure blobs. What you do after that? And Sai will be taking more questions. And if I get some question, I will be asking the questions. Will you please explain what you do once you get data in the Azure blob?
Okay, so there are, as I explained, since we are using mostly the open source technology, so we don't have anything like a data breaks which can maintain the offset or the time when the last data has been read. So there are basically different services. One is the finalizer service which we deploy, and what service does is basically it maintains a time for each table, for each database table that is being read, that is the pipeline is, we maintain a time, the timestamp till when the last run happened, when the last run happened till when the data has been consumed, the data
Mm-hmm.
has been read. So that is one different service that we use, that we deploy, and that maintains the basically the timestamp. So yeah, and from that particular, once we read the data, we mainly do the deduplication part. We dedupe the data, get the raw data, CDC events, dedupe it, and then append it in the Hive tables.
Okay. You said you use a service for maintaining the timestamps, right? It's like you maintain a control table of the timestamps what you have read. Is it a web service you are telling? How did you design that?
Yes, yeah, it's a web service.
Okay, then at the end of your pipeline, you call that web service passing the timestamp and this thing.
Yes, yes. At the end of this, at the end, once the job is being run, so we basically maintain the get the data. Okay, so this was the last timestamp which we have read, and just to keep a file, it's not a table. We will deploy it into a table. Currently, we are deploying it as a file in the table itself. So finalizer service we have. So it is more like of a job. It's not a very microservice architecture. I would say it's a mix of a job only that runs once the batch pipeline is being run.
Okay, it's not a web service you are telling.
No, no, it's not a web service. It is in going into the web service. मतलब we are in the transition phase.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You said you were working more on the ingestion part of the data for your data warehouse, right? Uh, what do you implement? I mean, what did you implement to make sure data quality is maintained? Do you have any data quality rules or any framework you use for maintaining the data quality?
Yes, we do have a framework by the it comes by the name of Arjun. We have it internally. We call it, and it has certain rules that we define. So there were like multiple facets of it. One was completeness. So completeness, by completeness we mean whether the data from the source system to the target system for a d minus 1 day is complete or not, complete or not, and we make it as a row count. So the number of row count for a particular day is same as in the warehouse. If not, then a list of and alerts come up. So one is completeness. Second is uniqueness count, and by uniqueness, so that we have the number of primary keys in the source system is equal to the number of primary keys in the target system. So that is one thing. And third was basically timeliness. So we have these different facets that we have evolved our framework to, and we have like multiple queries that run at a very day level for d minus 1 days.
Okay. Do you handle any sensitive information as well? Any PA or any other sensitive information? If yes, what kind of masking or what kind of things you have implemented to secure the data?
Okay, so yeah, we do maintain PII data on it, and but coming to the question, I have not been actively involved in maintaining because this was something which was developed before I came over. So yeah.
Okay, got it. What will be the? I mean, where you have these Airflow jobs which pulls from the data lake and you apply your transformations. I mean, when the job fails, what will be your debug strategy, and how do you approach the problem?
Okay. So there can be multiple reasons to it. First of all, we get alerts. How we get to know first, and then what is the possible solution? What are the possible solution? First of all, we have maintained a alerting solution. So whenever a job fails, an alert basically an alert throws up. So this particular job has failed. By this, we get notified. And just first of all, we try to read the log, go through the logs on what can be the possible solutions, and there can be multiple. For common ones, if I can say, there can be memory out of memory error. Many a times it comes up because somehow the more data has flowed in and our cluster wasn't of that particular size. That can be one. And second can be, since we are maintaining the cluster, some node has went down and the job was running on that particular node, and that particular node also itself went down. So the job stuck in between and eventually it failed down because other nodes were also busy during that particular time frame. Yeah, that was it.
Okay, for the out of memory issue, you are saying if the data is more than what is expected, your job fails. Then even if you rerun the job, it fails, right? I mean, how do you fix that?
Yes. So generally this happens when we are backfilling the data, and to backfill the data, we get huge loads of data. Certain situation come. So we run the data not as a whole. We run that in batches. So let's say we have these configurations in our Spark job where we configure from this particular time to this particular time. We batch the data, and we get an estimate. Okay. So for this particular time, this much amount of data would be there, and this much our system would be able to handle. So that is one thing. Otherwise, many sometimes it also happens that there are bad joins in the query that are being deployed, and so yeah, that for that we wrote a custom script, and we run the job with that particular script to get the data in a broadcast level.
Okay, suppose you have developed a pipeline. How do you load test it? I mean, if you develop a pipeline, if you test with your sample data, it works fine. But when it goes to production, you might face a lot of issues, right? I mean, what all things you make sure or test them before going into production? It is not just you write a SQL query and it runs and you it works. Like if you might face all these out of memory issues and other issues as well when it goes to production. I mean, what all testing you do as a developer before you release into prod?
Okay, so first of all, we the amount of data that can be handled, and that is the one thing with the our limit of data that can be handled by this particular pipeline. If we deploy this number of cores, if we deploy this number of executors, so that is the sense we need to have, and that is the load testing basically that we do for this amount of load. This is the this much cluster we need for this much let's say number of executors. This much load can be handled by this particular pipeline. And secondly is what the time also. So how much time is that particular pipeline taking to run that job? If it is taking after a very long time, and there, so yeah, definitely there is something wrong in the code and we need to correct that. And third is what are the optimization catalyst optimizer we use Spark, and the catalyst optimizer what has the optimizations done in the job, and we read and we try to read the map also, what is the execution plan of the final after the catalyst optimizer.
Okay,
So
got it.
yeah.
Bipul, what is you which cluster you use, which cloud you use to deploy your Spark job?
We use Azure.
You use Azure. Okay. So are you which mode of deployment you do, cluster mode or client mode?
Cluster mode.
What is the difference between client mode and cluster mode?
Yeah, this I'm forgetting as of now the exact difference, but yeah, I have to go back to theory.
Okay, so we will be focusing some bit of theory now. So, okay, so you might have used Coalesce and repartitions in your Spark jobs, right?
Yes.
What is the difference between them?
Yeah, Coalesce. So repartitioning, so Coalesce is, let's say there's mm we wrote the data, let's say we transform the data and we coalesce it. So basically the result would be stored in
Mhm.
certain buckets, and repartitioning is we'll be stored in a repartition the data, let's say by date. So by a date. So Coalesce will involve the shuffle. Basically, the data would be shuffled all through it, and repartitioning will not involve the shuffle. Basically, so
Actually, we're going little wrong. But no, but I do understand that while we are developer, while writing the code, we don't to think about too much of theory. But the coalesce and repartitions both are used for increasing and decreasing the number of partitions of that particular data frame or that particular RDD and other things. Yeah, there are things. Okay, Sai, if you want to ask some SQL questions.
Okay, let's go with a couple of SQL queries.
Okay, Bipul, will you please share your screen and open the any editor?
sure.
Cool. Uh, Sai, will you please explain the questions again?
Yeah.
Mm,
There are three tables: customers table, product table, and the orders table. Okay. Orders table is the transactional table. I mean, when a customer purchase a product, you'll get the all the information here. What is the order ID and the customer ID and the order date, product which they have purchased, and the quantity. Okay. And the other thing is product table, which is a catalog table. What all products a company sells. Okay. And other is the customers table. This is an individual customer level information, their first name, last name, and the email ID. So what you need to do is you need to find the products which has been purchased for the last 6 months, more than, I mean, multiple times. Okay, so that marketing team can use that particular data for sending the targeted ads. Okay, so that they can ask them to purchase again by showing the ads. You got it, right?
yes, yes. So basically, in the last 6 months, whoever has made a purchase for a particular product more than once.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And the quantity. Let's say if this particular on this particular date, this particular product has been purchased 2 times. So this will only be considered once, right?
Yes. Yes. That's
Okay.
correct.
And for okay, order ID, customer ID. Okay. So basically, in the last 6 months. Hmm. Select from orders. ठीक है. तो I will do a group by. Okay.
Initially, you can go with the approach what you want to build, and then write the SQL query.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking. So basically, I can I'll do a basically window function and partition by customer ID mm, and the min date and the okay. Okay, and we have to give only for those in the last 6 months, right?
Yes.
Okay. Select the start from order itself. So can we put a condition? मतलब we can put a condition in the beforehand only. Where date is for all. मतलब we can filter those orders 6 months last orders only, right?
Yes.
Okay. Where, hmm,
Okay, let's target the approach. We got it that you will apply filter on the last 6 months. What
Yeah.
more? What you will do after that?
First of all, I will apply the filter for getting the order, all the last 6 months order. First
Okay,
of all, and
great.
then I will group, basically apply a window function,
Mm-hmm.
and will do a count on count star where the partition by column would be the customer ID and the product IDs, and will filter all those where the partition
Why
where this particular,
customer ID and product ID as a partition field?
because for every customer, for every product, they have purchased more than twice.
Okay.
Yeah. So or else we can, matlab, for a order date is, let's say, the, and having clause also we can put, where,
No, don't think about the syntax. You can let us know the approach. We are fine with that.
yeah, matlab, I'm just writing it down for clarity, just
Okay.
not the exact syntax, only things. Hmm, Customer ID, product ID, yes. Hmm. Yes, so I am thinking on this, basically on this particular lines, where select star from group by, where first of all filter the last 6 months orders first of all, and then basically grouping by customer ID and product ID, and putting a having condition where the order ID is greater than 1. So we will get all those particular combination for a particular customer, and who has ordered a particular item more than twice, more than once, basically more than once in that particular 6 months time frame. We'll get a list of all those particular order and customer.
Okay,
Okay.
this looks good. In the interest of time, let's go with the other question as well. I'm sending you an email.
Let me know once you copy the questions in the notepad. And people try to focus on the question first. Try to understand what is asked. Then don't be nervous. Try to go step by step. Okay. Have you copied the question?
Yes, yeah, I have copied the
Sai,
question.
Sai, please explain the question.
Sure. You have an employees table and their sales table for each employee level. You need to find for each employee for the last 1 year uh, who has done the highest number of sales and order them. Okay,
Who has done the highest number of sales?
and order accordingly in the descending order.
Okay. Employee who has done the
And
highest number.
every time you run, it should actually find the last 1 year of data and the average number of sales for that employee, and what is the uh, amount of sales they have done as well.
Okay. First of all, filter the last 1 year. Then okay. So what I'm thinking is, first of all, filter all those records which are 1 year.
Mhm.
Yeah, 1 year records. Basically, filter out the 1 year records, and then grouping by employee ID, and then doing a sum of all the sales amount, and sum of the sales and the average of it, and then ordering by in descending order based on the sum of whatever we got for the sales.
Okay. When you filter the data, I mean, how do you approach? Do you use any subquery in that, or how do you want to do that?
Okay, so datetime, we can use the datetime function, which can get the uh, get today's date minus this, and which can be equal to 1 year. The 365 days, calculate the number of days, and
Okay,
if it is greater than 365, uh, yeah.
that's correct. But how do you use that data? Do you use this query in your as a subquery for the next step, or how do you do that?
Mm, we can use it within the function only, not a subquery.
Mhm.
Within this function, within this query, within a single query only, we can filter it first, and then within a single query only, not a subquery.
Mhm. Okay, can you write the, I mean, pseudo query or something?
Yeah, people what size trying to ask that will you be able to apply where clause, group by, and having in a single select statement.
Just a minute. Where? No, we'll have to use a CTE
Mhm.
to get the sum, basically sum as a column, and then filter, uh, and then do a order by after that.
Why not use the CT for filtering the data initially? I mean, if you do the sum, you will lose the condition of filtering, right? You need to basically filter out the data and then apply the sum. For the last 1 year data, you need to filter out, right? Otherwise, you will sum the records which are greater than 1 year as well initially itself.
Yes, yes, yeah.
I'm okay with the approach. We are running out of the time. Sai, you are okay with the approach, or you want to ask more question?
1 minute. Okay. I think I'm good. Okay. Final question. I mean, data engineering landscape is evolving, and there are a lot of new things coming into the field, right? What do you do usually? I mean, to stay up to date in the technology.
Okay, so the first thing that I try to do actively is to read engineering blogs of different companies, major companies, and what are they doing with the problem that they have. So these are those very good blogs to understand and learn from the industry. So that is one of the major thing that I do. And secondly is to do projects, is to understand for whatever areas I am weak in. I try to do projects on that, mini projects on that, to get a better understanding of things.
Okay, that's all.
And
What people? Do you
Yeah,
have any queries?
yeah, great people. I think we don't have more query, but you have good understanding about your project, and you were also able to approach the SQL problem. I can understand that, like we don't remember the syntax, but you were able to understand and able to solve it to one extent actually. Okay, so yeah, thanks for your time. So we will get back to you.
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.